June 20th meeting of the Board of Selectmen being called to order at 6:30. I'm John Jeffries. The meeting is being conducted remotely, consistent with the governor's orders issued March of 2023 regarding open meeting law. Individuals wishing to participate may do so utilizing the Zoom video conferencing technology. Please note that the meeting is being recorded and shared live on Facebook, broadcasted by Dover Sherburne Cable Television. Accordingly, please be aware that others may be able to see you. Please be careful not to share your screen with your computer. Note that anything that you do say will be broadcast and captured and recorded. As a preliminary matter, I'm just going to make sure we have a quorum. As I said, John Jeffries, chairman of the board. Robin Hunter.
Present.
David Haviland.
Present.
And Michael Blanchard is here. Chris Costello is here. George Cimento is here. Carol Lisbon from Planning Board. And we have a few other guests with us this evening who will be part of the agenda later this evening. Chris, do we have citizens speak, or has anybody communicated with you that they would like to be seen or referenced before we begin the meeting?
I haven't received anything prior, and I'm not seeing any hands raised, but public, if you have a question, feel free to speak now.
Give anybody a minute just to gather their thoughts or themselves. And
Cool off first.
And cool off. I failed to mention it was 91 degrees at 6:29. So
we have good friends who live in Florida, and when they left us and landed in Jacksonville, it was 10 degrees cooler in Florida.
Wow. That's saying a lot. Well, let's move to item 1. We're going to welcome George Cimento. We've had a nice opportunity to get to visit with George just a little bit before the meeting began. So I think we are all familiar with George. Chris and Michael probably the only ones in the meeting this evening that don't have a long familiarity with George and his dedication to the town. Carol, would you like to do the honors of officially introducing George?
Oh, well, thank you. So George has been in Dover since 1985. You'll see him around very often on his horse. And he is an attorney. He was on the planning board for 11 years, worked with Jim Rapetti, who recommended him to Robin and me a couple of weeks ago. And George and I had a wonderful conversation. He then met with Mike Blanchard and obviously had a wonderful conversation because George is with us tonight. So, George, we are thrilled to have you volunteering once again to help out in Dover. And I know that the Board of Appeals is very lucky to have you.
Well, thank you very much, Carol. It's really an honor and a pleasure to work with you. I mean, I know all of you. I've seen your dedication over the years. I don't know why you keep doing this. But you do fabulous job. This is, I think, the best run town in Massachusetts, and you deserve some compliments. I'll do my best on the Zoning Board of Appeals. I've reviewed the minutes that have been filed for past meetings, and I look forward to meeting the other members of the board as soon as we can. And thank you and Carol, obviously working with you on the planning board is going to be great. That will be.
Well, thank you. Right back at you.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, thank you,
George. Thank you very much. Robin, would you like to add anything before we make the motion?
I would just like to thank George. I look forward to working with you once again, George. And please let us know if you need any help or any insight. You're not in this alone. We are here to support you as best as we can, and really appreciate you taking the time and filling a really important role for the town. So thank you.
David?
Thank you, Robin.
It's tough to follow that, but thank you and a premature welcome.
Thank you.
And you may change your opinion about this being the best run town in Massachusetts after you get to know things.
Let's hope not.
But we're going to take the compliment while it's out there.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Oh, that's great.
I move to appoint George Demento to the Board of Appeals for a term ending on June 30th. I have to expand my screen. 2026. So George, and ask for a second.
I'll second that.
All in favor? I, John Jeffries.
I, Robin Hunter.
Hi, Dave Haviland.
George, before we let you go, the only thing
Yes.
the only question I have for is I ride by your farm very, very early in the mornings on my bicycle, and I haven't seen the animals out in the pasture. So
Well, you know, you can see there's a lot of hay behind my face in this picture. You know, we've got an awfully large farm down in Aiken, South Carolina, and it was easier to move the animals down there. But you have no idea how many people ask, especially for the donkeys.
Where are the donkeys?
They were the most popular little creatures on Powys Street. Well, they're having a great time, and but you know that's but they're down in Aiken. We do grow great hay, though. You can see that behind us, and you know, farming is a great way to lose money. That's what I discovered.
Well, I miss them, and I hope they're doing really, really well. And thank you very much for doing this for again coming back to help your town.
Well, that's great. And Mike, let's you and I touch base later. You can help me coordinate what needs to be done next. Okay.
Absolutely, George. Look forward to it. Thank you.
Hey, very good. Okay, I'll sign off then.
Thanks,
Thank you,
George.
George.
Bye, George.
Thanks, George.
Hey, bye-bye.
We're going to move
John-
to item 2. Mike?
John, sorry, can I interrupt you? So Anna just hopped on for item 2. If we could maybe just give her a half a second to settle in. We actually got a request from our town accountant warrant committee that if you would be willing to take item 6 out of order, because the warrant committee is meeting tonight at 7, and it would be helpful if we reviewed it first, and then we can report to them that you've already took a vote on this item, if you'd be so kind.
Sure. You may recall at our last meeting, Robin said to me, ask the youngest person in your office to show you the tab that I ran by bookmarking 4 times. And Robin, you'll be happy to know I figured it out all by myself.
I'm proud of you, John.
So we'll go to item 6, which is Michael and the summary to discuss the year-end budget appropriation process of transferring funds from one account to the other. The transfer must be approved by the Board of Selectmen and the warrant committee. As Michael discussed, we have gone through the matter. So anything to add to that, Mike?
No, just, you know, again, we kind of went over the details behind the process at your last meeting. We only have one before you today, which is for building maintenance. And it's a transfer from the Carroll Community Center fuel oil line, which has not been used. So there's excess funds available into our maintenance professional purchase services line item. There's kind of 2 drivers for that. One is during the roof project, which is so close to completion. We cannot wait till it's done. There was some rotting fascia board that was found that added to the cost of the project. We also had some unforeseen maintenance repairs, both at the police portion of the Protective Services Agency, as well as the library. So, you know, pretty straightforward request, but if you'd be so kind, I'd recommend your approval, and then we'll report while we're meeting to the warrant committee to let them know you've taken that vote.
Okay. Questions or comments, Robin?
No.
Dave?
I don't think so, no.
I move to approve the fiscal year 24 appropriation transfer as presented by Michael and ask for the amount of $67,000 and ask for a second.
I'll second that.
All in favor? I, John Jeffries.
I, Robin Hunter.
Hi, Dave Haviland.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Michael, is there anything else that we could do in the meantime, or is
Anna's here now, so
Anna,
I think we're ready to go.
Hi, Anna?
Hi, how are you?
Very good. How are you?
Good. Trying to stay cool.
Yeah, 91 degrees at
Good luck with that.
6:49. Exactly. So
Okay. Oh, go ahead.
Conservation, and I'm just going to give a very brief summary. Conservation Commission member Anna Nagy is here. We will discuss the deeds for the town-owned parcels of land transferred to the Conservation Commission. This was done at town meeting. This was approved at town meeting in May. And there are 7 properties this evening, Anna?
Let's see. It's
1, 2,
we have
3.
9, but it's like more parcels than that. So do you want me to share the deed? I've got it's got an attached exhibit.
You don't have to share the screen. I don't think it's necessary. All the items and the 9 properties were voted on at town meeting. I think this is really just a summary of the process and the official transfer vote this evening.
Yeah, they're actually
Yeah,
in the packet right at the second page, right after the agenda. So we don't need to see them, Anna.
Okay, sounds good. Town council told me that actually these deeds for the town meeting we just had, they just need to be notarized. So mostly I'm reporting back and saying they need to be notarized. The article we had was clear who was executing it. So this is an FYI. That's the last thing to do here. So this omnibus deed is all ready.
Great. Robin, do you have any questions
I do not.
Anna? Dave, any questions?
No.
John, I just want to mention, so the first piece is the town meeting this year. There is a second piece for 46R Springdale Ave, which was done at town meeting back in 2017, but I believe, was it Carol, Anna? Or I forget who brought forward that this final piece wasn't done with the deed. So thanks to Anna for running this down. We work with town council, and also in your packet is a deed and a record of vote. So that also can be transferred as well.
And there's a pretty distinctive differentiation in the drawing of 46 Springdale, the property line, the easement to it through the property at 46. So I don't think there's anything else that we could add to it, Michael, at this point. So I'm going to read both motions. Do we vote on the motion separately, Michael, or can we read both?
I would, as Anna said, council's, basically said the first portion just needs to be notarized. We do have a vote just for the record that you did review it tonight. So I would read them and vote separately just because they are legal deed documents.
Okay. I move to execute the quitclaim deed for the parcels at the following properties locations: Chickering Drive, Wakeland Drive, Main Street, Dedham Street, Wilsondale Street, Grand Hill Drive, Center Street, Haven Street, and Bridge Street, and authorize town administrator to take all actions reasonably necessary to complete the transfer of the property, and ask for a second.
I'll second that.
All in favor, aye, John Jeffries.
Aye, Robin Hunter.
Aye, Dave Haviland.
So moved. And the next one, I move to execute the quitclaim deed for 46 Rear Springdale Avenue and to authorize the town administrator to take all action reasonably necessary to complete the transfer of the property, and ask for a second.
Second.
All in favor, aye, John Jeffries.
Aye, Robin Hunter.
Aye, Dave Haviland.
Anna, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Stay
And Amy
cool,
was the
Anna.
one who noticed.
Oh,
Will
thank
do.
you.
I'm sorry, Anna, who noticed?
Amy noticed we hadn't finished the last step of Article 18, 2017.
Got it. Well, thank
Well,
Amy very much.
Please thank Amy
Yeah.
for us.
Will do.
It's great to get this all cleaned up.
Right.
Yeah, it's really exciting.
Thanks, Anna. Thank you for all your help on this.
Sure. Thank you. Have a good evening.
You too.
Thanks.
Item 3, Michael Blanchard, the summary of the contract for professional services between the town and Odyssey Advisors. This pertains to the OPEB. I'm sorry, this is the OPEB actuarial services. Odyssey
Yeah, so-
Advisors Inc. for OPEB actuarial services and consulting services and authorize the town administrator to sign the contract. Again, this is an item from town meeting. OPEB is the teachers' benefits that we have funded. We have begun this process systematically about 8 years ago. So this is a ongoing item that we are particularly proud of, that we're holding our town, the taxpayers, and providing the benefit to our teachers over and above the pension benefits that they get. These OPEB stands for the other pension benefits.
John, I'm confused now. Is this for the town or for the schools? I think
So
this is
it's
the town
actually, it's
OPEB.
both.
Oh, both.
Yeah,
It's both.
so it's for town and the Chickering school system. The region
got it.
does their own OPEB valuation as an independent body.
Right, and I believe it's a statutory requirement to do a GASB 75 valuation, and I believe you have to do it every 3 years. Does my memory?
Every 2 years, I believe.
Every
Yep.
2 years, okay.
Yep.
So any discussion or questions? I think we're all on board for this, but Robin, anything else you'd like to add?
No.
David?
No, thank you.
So, yeah, we could all, the three of us could go down the weeds on some of these from the rabbit hole. So I move to approve the standard general contract for professional services between the town of Dover and Odyssey Advisors, Inc. for OPEB actuarial and consulting services, and authorize the town administrator to sign the contract and
I'll
ask for
second that.
all in favor. I, John Jeffries.
Hi, Robin Hunter.
Hi, Dave Haviland.
Thank you very much. The next item of business is an agreement between the town and US Bank and Trust to make the ongoing payments from the general obligation bond through our $6 million bonding that we secured. And again, this was done via the town. Michael, is there anything you'd like to add to the summary? The vote was approved June 5th, 2024 at the Board of Selectmen's meeting.
No, I mean, this is just a follow-up to that vote. So US Bank in all the documents through bond counsel, it was named as our paying agent. There's very few banks that do this. As you can see, the cost, it's not a big generator of revenue. So it's kind of more of a volume business. There's just a couple of banks that do this. And this is just that the bank, does require a separate signed agreement. At some time ago, they realized they didn't have agreements in place, and part of their internal controls require them to initiate that. So this is standard each time we do a bond issue. So nothing out of the ordinary here, pretty standard.
Perfect. Robin, any questions, concerns?
No.
David?
No concerns. It is probably to note that every time we go out to bond, this type of fee should be remembered and added on to the total cost of bonding.
Yeah, that's part of the conversation that we have opened up with the Pandora's box that we opened a year ago in March, when the banking system sort of crumbled around us in some instances. So I move to approve the agreement between the town of Dover and US Bank and Trust, National Association, for paying agent services related to the general obligation bonds, and authorize the interim treasurer collector to sign the contract, and ask for a second.
Second.
All in favor, I, John Jeffries.
Hi, Robin Hunter.
Hi, Dave Haviland.
Thank you all. So the next item, I was a bit apprehensive about the volume of this item. We're being asked to look at 10 change orders for the community center, which total about $250,000. So we on the agenda, on the original agenda, we had just 10 minutes for this, which is definitely not enough time. We are ahead of schedule significantly tonight. So Robin and Dave, what I would like to do is I like to go through these, like to listen to Al and what our people at Colliers have to say about this. It's a lot of money. It's a lot. There are 10 items. Some of them are very small, some of them are significant, but if we don't get through all 10 in a reasonable amount of time, I'm suggesting we probably take the continue it to a later date and take the rest of them up. Is that okay with the two of you?
Well, I mean, it all depends on whether or not approving them is going to delay continuation of construction. You know, if that's the case, then I would say we would need to have a special meeting so that we can wrap this up. I certainly don't want to be the cause of delays because that's just going to cost us even more.
John, if I could hop in, just to Robin's point, again, the timing on the agenda is just a kind of a guide. I would appreciate if we could devote the time necessary tonight, just because some of these could trigger a delay, and obviously we don't want that. The building committee, made sure to review and vote these before your meetings. It'd be helpful if we could do our best to get through them, just to not cause any backlog of issues.
Is somebody
appreciate
from the
that.
building committee on the call?
So Dick was gonna be here. I do not see him yet. Al, do you know if Dick's on his way?
He was going to join us. Let me shoot him a quick text.
Yeah.
On the agenda it said 7:15, so maybe he's still eating dinner. Lucky man.
Yeah, just being mindful. I do appreciate both of your comments, Robin and Michael. I don't like being in a situation ever where we're not given enough time to go through $250,000. And Robin, to your point, if we don't give it enough time and we don't get a thorough explanation as to why there are change orders on items that seem very, trivial. Maybe it's the wrong word, but I apologize if it is, but I don't like that at all. I don't like the fact that we're in a situation where we're facing potentially further expenses because of change orders that should have been brought to us a long time ago. So
Well, I mean, I'd like to
exacerbates.
listen to Al and see if that were really the case. And again, if we don't have enough time, I just think we need to make the time to have a second meeting to deal with this.
Okay. All right.
If I may, there's some of these that were caused is the wrong word, but for lack of a better one, caused by local inspectors in changes that need to be made. And that's one category. Another way to look at this is there's a 61,000, 62, 56, 41, and 23, and 30. So does it make more sense to concentrate on the bigger numbers and find out what's going on there? Or conversely, we could go through the little ones and just pick them off, bing, bing, bing. I don't know, but I'd rather spend my time on the larger numbers first, because not that I wish to dismiss it, but $3,000 divided by 27 million, is it what's it worth? I mean, is it worth our time?
No,
you see what I so
yeah, I agree with that, David. An electrical change for $3,000, a valve for $3,000, a site work to remove a valve for $3,000. Those three I don't think are going to cause anybody heartburn, and certainly of our taxpayers. But $56,000 for quote unquote general conditions. Al, can you speak to that one first?
Of course, yeah, and I'm happy to. And I was going to start off by just saying a general comment, and that is that while what you're looking at here, this is the final figure that went through a vetting process sometimes months long. These were vetted not just by the architects, but their engineers, by colliers as the OPM. That includes myself, as well as Eagly, who has a background in construction project management, as well as the building committee, who themselves, they have several members who have decades of experience in construction and architecture. So these were all heavily vetted. What you're looking at is the final figure. Most of these were reduced in price substantially through that vetting process. So we have a couple of these that were reduced by like $30,000 through creative thinking with the project as a team collaboratively. So with that said, I'm happy to go through. Do you want to start off with the 56,000 general conditions?
Yeah, the PCO 15 site modifications.
Yeah, so that PCO was based on the town engineer's recommendations to modify, and I can pull that up over here. Actually, I can just share my screen.
And while you're pulling that up, Al, one of the things that was not readily apparent to me, and if it is, then I apologize for missing it, is what is PCO 5 and 11? 12 is on this, but 5 and 11 was before, and I don't know what they're for.
Sure. PCO, I'm sorry, you mean to say PCO 5 and 11?
Yeah, see how, look at PCO 15, and it says site modifications per ASIs 5, 11, and 12.
Yeah, so ASI basically stands for Architectural Supplemental Instructions, and that is just it's a standard form that's used during construction where that allows the architect to issue instructions, whether it's clarifications or minor changes to the work to the contractor. Those are standard on every construction project. I don't know off the top of my head what we're number 4. Sometimes these are based on, could be an inspector's comments, and that's the procedure for the architect to issue those changes and clarifications. Sometimes they carry a cost and sometimes they don't. So the ones that you see here do carry a cost, and that's why they're being presented as a potential change order.
But I think, Dave, just to answer your
ASI correspond with 12 in the PCO, or is that just coincidental?
That's coincidental.
right.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm gonna move on to PCO number 15. So this one is what we classified as authority, the inspections. This is happens on every construction project. It's based on the town engineer's recommendations to modify the stormwater system that was designed. It's a very large stormwater system. It's about 50 feet by 65 feet long. And it's made up of 42-inch, about 500 linear feet of 42-inch pipe. So this is a very, very big stormwater infiltration system. And the modifications that were recommended were to ensure a much more efficient operation of the system, much longer lasting system with less maintenance, and also to prevent early overflow into the neighbor's property. This is something that had it been brought up during the permitting process, it would have still, had to be paid by the town. So at the end of the day, this is what we consider is a betterment to the town. It's a much better system. Had a number of meetings with the architect, their engineers, the contractor, and members of the building committee to discuss this one. And actually, this one, we reduced the starting price for this was about $76,000. So we were able to, through the vetting process, bring that down to $61,000.
Al, the part of what you just said that just jumps out at me is the neighbor's property. How would this impact neighbor's property?
So currently in the existing condition, before this project even took place, all of the water from the parking areas in the back of the property was sheet flowing into the neighbor's property. That was the existing condition. Through the design of this project, we're implementing a very robust underground stormwater management system where you capture the rainwater, you store it underground in this massive system, and it dissipates slowly into the ground, and therefore reducing the sheet flow into the abutter's property. Now, what the engineer's recommendations were is to add a series of headers on either side. It allows much better distribution and operation of the system and prevents, it limits the potential for clogging and early outflowing into the neighbor's property. So at the end of the day, it's a betterment for the neighbor and for the city as well.
Does it flow into, So what you just described to me seems like a big dry well. Is that somewhat accurate?
I guess you could describe it. Yeah, it's basically just it's a storage system on the ground, and it allows it's and I forget what the engineers used to design it. It might be like a 500-year storm where you have to manage that water on site. You cannot dump that into the municipal system or the neighbors. So all that storm water, when it rains, it gets collected, and it allows it to slowly dissipate to percolate into the ground, and therefore you're limiting the amount of water that you're shedding onto the municipal system, as well as the neighbors' properties.
Okay. Dick, is this consistent with the other things that you have been doing with regards to addressing concerns of neighbors, and did this come up in association with that, or is this just strictly an architectural change that you've looked at and determined that this is in everybody's best interest?
I would say it's the latter. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I just would like Dick to answer that. Thank you.
Yeah.
No, it was brought up by the town engineer, Mike Angieri, and what was designed by the architects is to code. Mike Angieri, when he went through the plans, recommended these changes to, as Al mentioned, so that the system was a better system in that basically it's like a big leaching field, if you will, as opposed to a dry well. Basically, the water will spread out over the system more like a leaching field. And Mike Angieri brought it up with the concern of having a really bad rainstorm, and if things are clogged, that there would be possibly an event in the neighbor's yard. So this recommendation comes from him. And the building committee, thought it was a very sound recommendation, and voted in favor of recommending it to the Board of Selectmen.
Dick, are there any other of the change orders that came from Mike?
Correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, from inspectors, yes.
There was another change order. So this is there was another change order that came about from Mike. That change order was previously approved. So we broke it down into two parts in order to maintain the schedule. The first part was there were changes to the manholes associated with the stormwater system. That's separate, and that was approved before this one. Those structures had a lead time, so we had a concern with potential delays. So we got that one through, and then we separated this one out, which due to the dollar value, we needed to go through the Board of Selectmen's process.
David, you good with that?
So can I just ask a question? So Al and Dick, are these changes in the stormwater system or just enhancements? Because it sounds like what the architects originally designed was in accordance with code. So are these a result of something new? What I'm trying to understand, should we have known this ahead of time?
I think the word enhancement is a good word to use.
Okay.
It's taking what was designed and making it better.
Okay. So I know, since this building was designed, we have had more incidences, or I think that's the plural, of severe rain, and as a result of that, flooding. So I was just wondering if, based upon experience, near-term experience, that the way to design these has been tweaked somewhat.
Yeah, and it's interesting because Mike Angieri, the town engineer, with his years of experience with these things, recommended these betterments.
Okay.
That's, John, to let you know, that's what I meant by inspector. It was someone from the town of Dover asked that the
Yeah.
building committee consider certain items, and this is clearly one of them. It's just, this is the big one.
Right.
Yeah, Dave, and that's exactly what I was trying to get to with my question to Dick was are these or any of these on their own or in combination with others come from Mike and Jerry as a result of, as whether Robin says word enhancement or additions to, or, where what was the genesis of some of these? And if it came from Mike, I would think for our perspective, that's certainly it's a different lens to look at these through, right?
Right. Like to me, if this is going to help us down the road avoid additional costs, then it's something we should definitely do, especially given the experience we've had as of late at the town garage. So, certainly I don't have an issue with this.
Yeah, I think we're in the same page, Robin. We're
Yeah.
trying to differentiate between, is this in the best interest of everybody, and or why is this coming to us now? Should it have been done at the beginning? Where I just want to try and differentiate between those and to see if there is any of these, if there is even a differentiation between them.
Yeah. Right. So to answer your question, John, yes, I'm now comfortable with number 15.
Al, you want to move to the next one, please?
Sure. The next big one, which
22.
22. Here we go.
So Al, just for your information, I was wondering why I couldn't move the pages on the screen because I have the same thing open. So, all right, never mind. I figured it out now. I was trying to move the wrong pages.
Got it. So yeah,
It's
so
my
this
own
PCO,
entertainment for the night.
yeah, so this PCO, this is associated with the general condition cost for the additional time that it took to perform the additional asbestos abatement that was discovered during, when we started the project. The total time that it took to remove that asbestos was 17 calendar days. During that time, the contractor incurred additional costs just to keep the site open. That included paying their staff, so project manager, assistant project manager, their superintendent, and other costs associated with the site, such as the field office, fence rental, builder's risk insurance. And
Al,
one thing that's...
I'm sorry, I apologize. Continue. I'm sorry.
Yeah, one other thing that I think it's important to note is that while the contractor is only charging us 17 calendar days for general conditions, the delay to the project was 28 days. So they were able to work with us on this one. It did take, in addition to the time that it took to remove that asbestos, there was additional time that it took through the process of identifying this asbestos, testing this asbestos. During that time, certain work couldn't take place, causing additional delays. But like I mentioned, and again, so the contractor was able to work with us with that, and they only charged us 17 calendar days. I think the cost associated with an additional 11 days is about $40,000. So just as a heads up on that.
So Al, let me just paraphrase if I may. So it essentially, was this a negotiation between the contractor and Dick, or Dick, is that a correct, even is that a correct characterization of this? Do we negotiate this?
I wouldn't call it okay. So negotiate in terms of pushing back on what they're asking for and asking for the reasoning behind these costs, which Al has been very diligent about pursuing. We're not like saying there hasn't been any like horse trading, if you will. If that's your question.
Well, I know that we paid for extra days because of asbestos once before. Al, isn't that correct? Isn't this the second item that we've done with regards to asbestos abatements?
It is the second cost associated with the asbestos abatement, but it is the first cost that is associated with the time extension. the prior cost that was approved was just for the subcontractor to do the asbestos abatement. This is for the contractor to run the site an additional 17 days.
So the part that I don't get is the site's got to be operational. The site's operational, so why are we paying the extra 17 days for something that's operational, regardless of what the asbestos abatement took?
So it's what's considered a time extension. So in their contract, and this is standard in construction. You know, to do whenever you run into situations where there's additional work and it takes additional time delaying the project, you do what's called a time extension. It has to be justified by the contractor. They have to show you why they were delayed. And then the way that it works is they're in their contract in this project, I think they have like 420 calendar days. If for reasons outside of the contractor's control, it gets extended past that, that means it's additional time that it takes for them to keep the site open.
If I may just chime in, there are certain things in the process of the construction of this in this project where it's very linear path. One thing gets accomplished and then you have to go on to another one, and that has to be completed before you can actually go on to another task. There are times in the project, as the project goes along, there are coinciding construction tasks which can be done at the same time. With the asbestos mitigation, the building had to be cleared of asbestos before any other work could proceed. And so this really affects their time allotment of, if they've got X amount of months to do the project and it took X amount of time to solve these asbestos issues, it really is a very linear. There's nothing else they could really be doing in the meantime. So it gets added on to the end.
Yeah, I thank you, Dick. And I am painfully aware of process engineering and crashing jobs. And for those of you that don't know, that is actually a management term of speeding up the process and making alternatives to the process engineering. It is something that certainly a manager can catch up with. It's a process that can certainly be worked with. I do understand what you're saying, Dick, that it's a linear progression. My assumption is that the manager would be able to catch up over the period of time that there would be, it just seems to me again that we have paid for this once, as Al highlighted through the subcontractor, that we seem to be paying for it again. I don't want to create, and I certainly don't expect there to be a precedent that this is something that we're just going to go along with regards to extensions. Does that mean that we should expect an extension in the overall delivery of the project that is longer than 17 days or a 28 calendar days, as you mentioned now?
Yep. So with this change order, essentially what's going to do is going to extend the contractor's required duration by 28 days. So if they don't complete it by those 28 days, the project, then they will be subject to liquidated penalty, essentially.
Do we pay extra for the 28 days at the end of the project?
I think this is it.
Are you sure, Robin?
I don't know. That's what I'm asking, but I think so. Right, Al?
I'm sorry. What was the question, Robin?
I said I believe that this $56,000 represents the additional time that will need to be spent on the project, right, by the general contractor.
It does. It does.
John,
David,
can I look at this? I'm sorry, finish a thought if you want to complete it, but then I'd love to ask a couple.
No, I was gonna ask you, are you good with that?
Well, I think we need to take this out to a broader level, at least so I can understand where we are, because I've heard lots of facts and I'm afraid that I might be very wrong here. So could either Dick or Al, could you explain where we are right now in terms of the overall project time delay and what what has been approved by the building committee in terms of days delay. Does this add to it? Because reviewing your last meeting, it appeared that the community center is now not going to open until January. Did I get all this right?
Dave, I can take a stab at that one. As far as the first question about what the building committee has recommended for approval as far as a delay, this is the only one right here. There haven't been any that have been formally approved, just because we're still hasn't been approved by the Board of Selectmen. This is the only one that has been recommended for approval by the building committee. These 28 days. Unrelated to that, we received an updated construction schedule a couple of months ago from the general contractor that shows them needing an additional 2 months to complete the project. This will push occupancy of the building to late November. Now, that schedule was rejected because a delay claim essentially had not been provided. And it wasn't consistent with what we have in the contract right now. We are currently working with the town's legal counsel on this one. And we're currently anticipating a corrective plan and that delay claim to see what, how many days they're essentially requesting additional delay. But that has not been, we don't have that yet, so it has not been presented to the building committee yet.
Would it cause the project and or the town additional dollars if we use this 56,497.42 as a bargaining chip and not pay them now, but wait until we get the revised schedule on their delay and find out exactly what we're up against? Because if they come back and say, well, it's not going to be 2 months, but it's going to be 6 weeks plus the 28 days, when do we get something back because they have delayed?
Dave, that was the exact question I just began to ask a couple of minutes ago. You framed it and said it a whole lot more articulately than I did. So thank you very much for that. That's exactly where I was going.
Yeah, so this cost here for the general conditions is it's not associated with the additional delay that they're claiming. We working with legal counsel for their May payment application. We decided to withhold around $57,000 for general conditions from their May payment application, and that is until they provide a corrective plan. So that is the decision that was made with legal counsel.
Al,
okay, well, I have a question on that as well, Al, but it doesn't answer the core of my question. So if you would bear with me and let me try again. This will give them 28 more days. On top of that, they've asked us for 2 more months. So that's 3 months is what's on the table right now. We've said no to 3 months, but we don't know what they're going to come back with. Yet we have to pay them $57,000 for a delay that, in my humble opinion as a layperson, so that's a very dangerous statement, but I think they should have known about this asbestos to begin with. That's all been decided. I'm not going to reopen that can of worms, but we're being asked to pay $57,000 for that delay when the building committee with legal counsel was one of my other questions. So yes, there's $57,000 being held out of 1.2 million for this month's payment to the contractor. And I'm going, all right, well, that's a drop in the bucket. That they don't care. So especially if we're going to pay him 57 here and withhold 57 over there, I look at it and I guess well, look, I have pause based on just this whole conversation on this one, because let them catch up. Because what if they come back and say, well, it's going to be a month? Does the town get any money back? We have to pay them for for a delay that was outside of everyone's control. But when they have a delay that was in their control, the town doesn't get any refund. So why are we paying them for that delay? It does. What's good for the goose is good for the gander.
So Dave, I'll try to just jump in only because I was part of some of these conversations. So, I think that what's before you tonight, the 56 and change related to the asbestos delay, it is completely separate. It's a valid delay. It's been accepted by Colliers, by our project management team, by the building committee as legitimate. Again, the asbestos conversation was voted last September, but this is the consequence of that. And I think we would be in violation of our contract if we withhold this for unrelated reasons. This particular one has been vetted and been approved. So I think it's important for our end to pay that. The delay that is on the table for the current and future items, we have rejected that. So yes, the contractor is proposing they're going to be delayed, but we have not received a formal claim from them that they will be. And so I know it's very frustrating, but it's difficult for us to respond other than to outright reject it, which we did, because we agree that that seems very excessive. They may come back with some of those delays that are legitimate, that perhaps, that they're not responsible for. Others they are. And I think, Al, you could speak to this, but if the contractor is responsible for delays, we do have provisions in the contract that we can assess them additional fees for that. The name's escaping me.
Liquidated damages.
What's that?
Liquidated damages.
Yeah. So we are able to recoup liquidated damages should they go beyond and violate their end of the contract and not complete in the time that they're required to. So again, we're giving them the extra days here. We do believe this is appropriate and fair and the right thing to do. The other delay is unfortunately is somewhat still hypothetical because it hasn't officially been presented to us, and there are opportunities to liquidate or to go after liquidated damages if needed.
I thank you, Mike. I do understand that. Just from my chair, it is a very poor position where we have to pay them for a delay when they have proposed to delay the project by 2 months in addition to this 28. And what's the provision in the contract then? I mean, there has to be some kind of buffer. I mean, there's no way that they can say, oh, this is going to be done on this date. I mean, no one can do that. But what is the buffer? I mean, will the 28, and then if there's additional, because we're probably going to extend that buffer.
Al, there's a date certain right now that they have to be substantially complete by, correct?
It would be, yeah, so it would be this 28, if we approve this 28 days, it would be that 28 days right now. There's been no other time extensions.
Al, what's that date?
That is a hard date.
What's the date?
Yeah, that would be, it's like our October 5th, I believe.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So
we're going to go from October 5th basically to November 1st. That's what we're agreeing to here. In addition to the 57,000, we're letting them have another month to fix delays.
I think the October 5th includes these calendar days, correct, Al?
The October 5th includes these 28 days, correct?
Right.
Okay. And that was discussed. We had a lot of conversations around the asbestos. It was very frustrating, but I think my sound shut off. Can you hear me?
Yes. No, you're good. Keep going, Robin. You're good.
Okay, because it was frustrating to us because the additional asbestos was found when they started to take apart the boilers. And there was, as part of the original proposal, they did account for a certain amount of asbestos in the boilers, and this was just substantially more. So we did have a lot of conversations about, why didn't we go back and look at the specs? And then at the end of the day, we agreed that we needed to pay for the additional abatement. And at that time, we were made aware that the additional work that was done was going to delay the project by approximately 1 month. And I think this is that 1 month. And if I hear you correctly, Al, what you're saying is if this alleged additional delay is caused by the contractor, then we can then, as a town, go after, what's the word I'm looking for? Through the
Liquidated
liquidated
damages.
damages clause, we can go after them and collect a rebate. But it's each, this is a contract that we agreed to way back when. That was vetted by legal counsel, Colliers, everybody, including the Board of Selectmen.
I don't think anybody's discounting that the process, Robin. I'm really taken aback by is it just seems backwards. This to just reiterate what Dave said earlier. I think the whole conversation this evening should have begun with, we're going to be 2 months behind.
But we don't know that.
That's what the builder is proposing to us.
But
It's been rejected.
right.
So we don't know what the
point,
counter is going to be. Is it going to be 1 week, 6 weeks, or whatever? We just don't know.
and we don't know what the cause is. But again, the way this works is, my understanding is that for each subcontractor that, or for each component of the overall project, there can be delays. And so right now, I don't know what the composition of the additional 2 months is. And at this point, we also don't know whether or not it's going to materialize.
So, Al, what's our leverage?
Liquidated damages. I think we did what we could do and we rejected it, which means that they have to find a way to make up the time.
Or they can come up with ways to find excuses to say this delay cost us 1 here and this one cost us 3 there and that one cost us 2 there, and they nickel and dime us. And we're going to be sitting there going, well, how do I know whether or not the delay for the McGafflator is legitimate or not? So it just, what I'm more
That's Al's job.
That's my job. That is correct, Robin. Yeah. It has to be substantiated. Yeah.
So when do we say no?
We said no.
Do we continue to say no?
Well, I think maybe before we decide on this PCO number 22, may we have the discussion on the payment and the withholding of payment. How did that 57,000 coincidentally, how was that number determined?
That was determined with in conversations with town legal counsel and the contract terms.
How was the number derived?
So you had a good point earlier where you said their May payment application was 1.2 million, but we were only withholding 57,000. Like why is that? Well, that payment application includes payment for all the subcontractors. We're only, for work that the subcontractors perform and they're entitled to payments. We're only withholding payment from the actual general contractor, which we withheld their entire general conditions for the May payment application. It coincidentally, like you said, it's about $57,000.
Will we be withholding the same from next month's application if we have not had a successful resolution to the 2-month delay?
That's to be determined. We would have to get in touch with legal counsel and see if we still don't get this at the moment. That's not the plan, but we would have to coordinate with legal counsel if there's any provisions for or ways for us to withhold additional money.
But Dave, I think, I'm not legal counsel, but my impression of the conversation is yes, that would be on the table again.
Right.
Should we be in the same boat?
Exactly. I think what John and I are just getting at here is it seems like the contractor always has the leverage, and now the contractor is proposing something quite detrimental. I understand about liquidated damages, but continuing to pay them full boat as we go when they have not resolved a 2-month delay is not something I personally like and am comfortable with. And so that is why I'm really bringing up this as a much larger discussion. The 56 PCO number 22 is not nearly the issue. It is a much broader issue. And I'm just wondering what the town of Dover has as bargaining measures other than waiting all the way until the end. And then what have we withheld? 57,000 on it for a 2-month delay?
I think we are obligated, and correct me if you're wrong, if I'm wrong, to reimburse subcontractors for work that they've actually done. So the only thing we can delay payment on is work to the general contractor. And that's what they've done. And keep in mind that of the total project, there is only probably 20% of the 27 million that is going to the general contractor. That is their fee. So I think not paying subcontractors, we as a town are in violation of the contract, and work is just going to stop. I mean, nobody's going to want to work. So
Robert, no, I get
don't know
that.
what more we can do.
I get that. So I'm saying that we pay this 56 because 57 has been withheld, and that's the most we can do for because of the subcontractors. That is an explanation I totally understand and makes a lot of sense. But still, in the grand scheme of things, are we going to have more leverage? Because $57,000, look, it's one general conditions change order. I don't see the general contractor changing their behavior one iota on 57. But if this month it's 57, and next month they ask for 57, and the following months they ask for 57, and we continue to withhold it until they give us a satisfactory answer on the 2 months, then that makes sense to me.
Let me just add one other comment to that, Dave, is how do we exercise our fiduciary duty that we have to the town to say, hell no, when if we're, to Robin's point, if we have an obligation to pay the subcontractors, I understand that completely. We also have an obligation to our constituents to say, we're not going to subject you to a death by 1,000 cuts of every change order cumulatively, allowing the project to take an extra 4 months. Think about that, David, from October to January.
But this is all speculation.
Well, Robin, but it's not. It's what they've already come to us, and they have come to us or they've come to Al and they've come to Dick and said, here's where we are. This is where we think we're going to end up. And
sorry, Judge, I want to be clarified. January is not the date. It's the end of November. I believe the January date was for the punch list items. So that occupancy, even with the delay that was originally proposed that we rejected, occupancy was still the end of November. The January date was for punch list items, not occupancy. But this is a really difficult thing to swallow. But I think the reality is, they've proposed that they're behind, but unfortunately, until they've hit that date, they're not behind, right?
Right.
And I know that I don't mean to sound glib about it, but they've floated, I think, 59 days. We've rejected it. To Dave's point, I probably believe they're going to come back with something less than. Al in our building committee, will work to, for my word, lack of a term, negotiate, just like they did with this. If you remember, this asbestos change order was voted in September. They're only now bringing forward this because of all the work they did to have to justify and show. I mean, it did take months to get here. And the same kind of diligence, we have to ask of Colliers and our building committee for any future requests for delays as well. But it is very frustrating. I completely agree. And, while the 57, again, I know it's a coincidental number that we withheld, seems in the scheme of things pretty small. Contractually, that's where we're at. That's what we're allowed to do. And we'll, as I said, I'm not legal counsel, but I do believe that is what we would continue to do until we get the satisfactory information from them, which, to my understanding, as of now, they still have not provided.
So just for reference, Al, if rule, I'm doing this in my head, which is really dangerous. So if the total project is 27 million, then their fee is around 5.4 million if it's 20%. So I'm just curious, how much of their fee have we paid through June?
Yeah, so their fee is actually baked into their general conditions. So yeah, there's not like a separate line item that is just for the contractor's fee. That's pretty standard. But I can tell you where they're at in terms of how much they've been paid. Okay, so their contract value, their contract amount is 19.5 million, and with actually this one won't show it because this shows they've been paid 6.2. But as far as the contractors, I gotta look at a separate document.
I guess what I'm getting at is at some point, can we, if we don't get the resolution we're looking for, should we withhold a percent of their fee so that we can continue to have leverage to get things resolved? I think at this point we're probably 60% complete, or less, or more, or...
Yeah, so that's actually a question that they've asked in an email earlier this week, and I had looked at that. So the general contractor right now is 33% billed, and the overall project is 38% billed. And as far as I think we're gonna coordinate with legal counsel as to the best steps moving forward, as to if we withhold additional funds, how much it's gonna be. There may be a limit that's going to be based on the town's actual incurred cost. So, if we look at, okay, the contractor saying they might be 2 months late, what is the cost to the town for those 2 months?
Right.
And so, there has to be a limit. Like, I don't know that we can withhold $1 million from the contractor if the town's, estimated cost is about $90,000, which is, maybe around that figure. And so that's something that we'll work with town's legal counsel to,
what would be the liquidated damages on 2 months delay, Al?
That would be 1,500. I think like 88,000 if I remember correctly.
So Al, we're all asking you the same question in a very different way. What is our leverage? How do we exercise that leverage?
I think that's our leverage. It's there are provisions in the contract for penalties if the contract is behind schedule. So at this point, like Michael Blanchard mentioned, we have not received a delay claim where they're telling us how long they're going to be behind schedule. All we got was a schedule saying, we're going to be behind, but that's not a delay claim. So once we get that, we'll know how long they're going to be delayed. And then towards the end of the project, depending on how delayed they are, that is our leverage, will be liquidated damages.
And where do we withhold, when do we withhold the money?
So we're withholding money right now from the general conditions. And towards the end of the project, if we're, and again, I'm not like an attorney, which is why we're working with legal counsel, but at the end of the project, say, we can, my understanding is we're limited to that liquidated damages, to the actual damages that the town has incurred. And so we'll work with them on that at the end of the project, but we're withheld money already.
But if we withhold 57,000 in the total penalty maxes out at 88, again, 88 over the 5 point whatever million that they're going to be getting off of this project, do they care? And that is something that you need to internalize, Al, for us as a town, as we do care. And my issue now is that if the total liquidated damages are 88,000 and that's the cap, then the leverage we need, and the issue that I have is not the money, because it's the 28 days. I mean, we're just saying, okay, you know what? We agreed to the asbestos conversation, and we're not going to reopen that. But at that time, no one agreed to a month delay, did they?
Yes, we knew
Yeah.
there was gonna be a delay associated with it.
And
So
at
to be
that time,
clear-
Robin, did you agree to a 28 day in the total contract?
They, at the end of the day, we said this is something we need to live with because it took that long to do the additional asbestos work. So at that time, they made clear that the project was gonna be delayed. There was a hope that maybe they could make up some time.
So, Robin, or think about that, the natural extension of that. We have 3 months to go to get to the finish line. Al said earlier, it's 32% or 38% billed. That means they still have to bill us 60%, Al, somewhere in that range?
70%.
60, he said 38%. So
Okay,
like
so
about probably a little over 60%. Al, is that correct?
That is correct, and it's not uncommon for the billing. You start off kind of slow,
Yeah.
and the project. I mean, in the beginning, there's only a few. Like Dick was saying, it's very linear in the beginning of the project. You only have a handful of trades that are on site. So the billing starts very low, and then it starts to ramp up. So it's we're getting pay ups that are bigger because there's more work happening on site as we get closer to the end.
Yeah. But thank you for that. It just clarifies where I'm trying to go with this is we've got 3 months. We've got 3 months where they're going to ask us to pay them approximately 60% of the cost of the job over the next 3 months because
it's 5 months, right? 4
No,
months.
the-
Because it's July, August.
July,
and
all of
or
July,
October.
all of August, all of September. October was the date. October's,
October
you
5th.
just said
They're
October
usually
8th,
behind October 5th.
October 5th, Al?
October 5th is there if this change order 22 with the
3
28 days
months,
were
Robin. It's just 3 months. So
It's
they've
4
got,
months because they haven't billed us for June, John.
But
at the
well,
end of June,
another side note,
Robin,
just
at the end of June, we will bill them the 3 more months is what they have for us to pay them approximately 60% of the value of this job. In my humble opinion, we have the leverage right now.
Well, I mean,
Right
there's
now.
no way I would tell you right now that we probably have occupancy and still need to pay them because the billing is going to lag.
I agree with that, and it does make sense. I mean, all this work is yet to be done, and it is yet to be billed, and billing cycles take a month or longer. So I get
So
that.
to John's point, we have leverage.
Now is the time to exercise the leverage, Dave. That's
Well, I guess we're going to start with 57 because Nina and Al explained it very well. We can't withhold on the subs, so we're only withholding the 57, which is going to the general contractor. But next month, that general contractor fee is going to be even larger. And if we don't have restitution, what have you, then we should be also withholding additional dollars until they come back with a plan and get back on track. And I guess I'm balking at the 28 days right now because what we're basically saying to them is ollie income free. You just asked for 2 months. And, I just don't believe that they stopped all work on the project for 28 days.
There's nobody under 50 years old who just understood what you said.
Well, Dave, unfortunately, we had this conversation already. And we agreed my recollection is we agreed to the 28 days reluctantly, but that's what we agreed to. Because there were, if I remember, there were a bunch of days that we had to, nothing was being done because they had to do additional testing and then they had to bring in additional equipment. But it was September, which was a long time ago. So
Yeah.
I remember being very frustrated by the conversation. And at the end of the day, we, you know, if we wanted to move forward on the project, we, you know, we relied on Al to ensure that we weren't paying for more days than necessary, and this is what we agreed to.
Well, if it's been
Yeah.
agreed by a previous Board of Selectmen, then I hold the point moot because it's been agreed to, and I'm not going to try and undo what a previous board has already done. I will ask Dick and Al to listen to our general sentiment, and I also note that if we pay all of these change orders, that the contingency will be down to 65%. And we're, would you say 33% build and 38% built? So,
if we were to approve all the change orders that we're presenting tonight, the remaining contingency would be 78%. So it would be approximately 21% contingency spent. The 65% number, there's additional PCOs that are still in the works. They have not been presented to the building committee for recommendation approval. And that's where you're getting that 65% contingency remaining. But for these change orders, if they were all approved as presented, we would have 78% contingency or $1.9 million, which I think this is, you know, when you compare the percentage contingency spent, if we were to approve these change orders, it's very much in line with a typical construction project when you compare it to where we're at on the project.
Al, the additional points of your presentation this evening consist of the items number 30, which is $41,000, and item number 32, which is $4,800. Then the rest of the 113 pages are associated with the generator and the generator conversation. Is that included in the number that you just mentioned?
There are no costs associated with the generator that are included in the potential change orders being presented tonight.
Okay. Is there anything else that it could possibly be a part of that's associated with the other items that are in tonight's presentation? The generator, moving the generator, or the fence that will be built on the abutters properties?
They're not.
Okay. So from the process standpoint, back to Al, the process of this evening, with what you have withheld, or what Dick is proposing we withhold, it just seems that we're going to approve it. If we approve this, we're withholding 57,000. Is that correct?
Correct.
it's a different 57,000, John. It's just coincidental, but that's what Nina came up with. And what Al, correct me if I'm wrong, but that is the maximum amount we can withhold, because everything else is paying a subcontractor, and that we're not allowed to withhold.
Okay.
So we can only do 57 this month. And thus my question about, well, what happens if next month we still don't have a resolution? Are we going to withhold more? Because then the contractor's not responding. I mean, if they haven't given us a decent counter proposal in a month, then, you know, that's almost a red flag. But I'm more than willing to move on from 22 right now. I think that Al and Dick are very clear that we're not happy about this, and, you know, additional extensions of the contract are going to be not met well. And until we get a resolution from them. I mean, again, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. And, you know, we've had to pay through this delay quite extensively. And I'm looking forward to their answer from our rejection. So I would really like to spend a moment on number 25 because there's information that I don't believe the building committee has. And
So
that
Dave,
is, all right, go ahead,
sorry,
Mike.
I'd be happy to jump in. So that is the one item which, again, it's not good news, I guess I'm going to say, is since the building committee meeting, we've had the opportunity. I've gotten involved, talked with Dick and Al. I spoke with Carl Warnick, which is where this recommendation was generated from. I've also had the opportunity to speak with Aquarian, and my recommendation to you tonight is to not approve this change order for the $30,700 plus dollars. On paper, if this was a zero cost, it makes very good sense. And Carl, I appreciate Carl's intent in what he was trying to recommend. But given that it's not free, there is a significant cost associated with it. My recommendation, pulling together all the information, is that you recommend not to approve PCO number 25, given the information we have since the building committee's meeting.
Okay, because John, number 32, the 23,000, that is also an improvement. The existing slab is just not able to take the overlay. And so this is going to pour a brand new slab. How'd I do, Al? Is that pretty good?
That was great. Yes.
Okay. So I have no questions on 32. I do have a question on 30 and the wall angles. And my question here is, shouldn't this have been known by the contractor?
No, because this came about after demolition of the interior walls. We did not know what that exterior wall assembly was until those interior walls came down. And that's when we discovered that the innermost layer of the brick is not actually brick, it's terracotta, which is, it's not adequate enough for seismic to tie in with the seismic angles that are required. And that's why this change came about.
And Al, that it just seems like how do you miss the fact that it's terracotta? How does that not come out in some type of an engineering examination of the building?
You have to take the walls down, is my guess, to figure out some of the stuff.
Yeah, there was no destructive testing that was done to verify existing conditions. Everything was covered up with walls.
But why not? It goes back to the same question we asked 8 months ago when the boiler came back with more asbestos and there was asbestos behind the chalkboards. Like, why not? You had a building that was empty and it was not occupied. Like, how do you miss the fact that a boiler that's been in service for 90 years had more asbestos? These are parts of things they just don't make sense.
I guess my frustration having, and again, we have hours, so please bear with us. This is both your expertise, Dick and Al, and, we're given a couple hours to review. I think it was 180 some odd pages in our packet. Not qualified even to read the designs or what have you. And then we have got to make this fiduciary decision for the town. The frustration is not with you. To me, it's when we get surprised, we have to pay. When they get surprised, we still have to pay. And that's why I get frustrated. And it was
the contracts we entered into. We entered into a contract that basically said there were certain unknowns, and that's why we have this contingency. All I can do is equate it to my renovation at home, where until they tried to tie in the old plumbing with the new plumbing, we had no idea we had to replace all that plumbing. So I think this is just the nature of construction projects.
And
You know,
to
you
add to
just
that,
can't know everything.
this is something that the town would have still have had to pay for if it had been discovered ahead of time. It would have still needed a different anchoring system with the additional labor.
That's fair. I get that. But it's still, I mean, the frustration is still there, but it was good to know that the wall angle or the terracotta was covered up. I did not know that before and catch that. So
I mean, I guess this is the problem when you keep a 1910 building. I mean, I mean, who would have known that there was terracotta back there?
No, I think, you know, we all recognize the frustration in this, and believe me, we are frustrated as well when these things come up. But there are these things, especially in the 90s, as Robin was just alluding to. You know, it's a 1910 building. These are hidden conditions. You know, to find out about these hidden conditions, you'd end up having to take the building down and then figure out what you're going to do. And remember, the
And
town did
rebuild it.
decide,
Right.
you know, and the town did decide that they wanted to preserve this 1910s structure, and with that comes some of these risks.
Dick, I just want to make sure before we move on to this and before we wrap this part up, there's 13 items, as you've heard from me and you've heard from David. You know, 113 of the 200 pages were visuals, were representations, were a lot of conversation with abutters, with the fences, with changes that are being made to the generation system, the air conditioning system, the air filtration system that the air conditioning is going to go on. Are all of these items, have all these items been, no pun intended, vetted with Linda and Doug Wolf and the abutters and Dana, all the people on that side of Whiting?
So I think to help answer the question, the change orders that are before you tonight aren't related to those concerns. So these were not, none of these were vetted, you know, or run by abutters.
Or
these
will help
coming-
them, or will help them because the 61 is an improvement that
Correct.
will ensure that we don't harm them.
Right.
And that, yeah, thank you, David. That's what I'm getting to. So Dick, this has all been through the process with the abutters.
John, I don't understand what you mean by the process with the abutters. I mean, there was a process.
I just want to make sure that everything was done to their satisfaction.
But none of this applies to the abutters.
I can't tell you if it's been done to their satisfaction or not. What I can tell you is that during the whole design process, you know, back 2 years ago, we went through abutter meetings. We had open meetings on the design. There were opportunities for feedback from the abutters, and we went through all of that. And we presented the plans to the town, we presented them to the planning board, we presented them to the board of selectmen, and they were all approved. So we did our due diligence with it when we were designing this building. So I can't speak for how abutters feel now. We've heard from some abutters, some concerns of theirs. Yes. None of these change orders that are being presented tonight, with the exception of the retention. I can't remember the name of that, the number of that one. Affects the butters. So
Number 15, I think.
Well, Mr. Chairman, may I suggest then that we, because I would like to continue to talk about that topic, but right now we've got 202,379.79 in change orders that we need to vote on tonight. As painful it is for all of us, and I thank you, Al and Dick, for putting up with all of our questions, but we've got to know, and we've got to have our minds educated. So I thank you very much for doing so. But I'm in support of the 202. Mike, I'm glad that you are recommending to hold off on number 25. So do we need to vote on this now? Because I think everyone's pretty clear on what we would like to do going forward. And it sounds like we're all generally on the same page. It's just that it's the degree of dislike, right? I mean,
Yeah.
no one likes this. It's just our degree of dislike. And frankly, a lot of it's just newness. You guys have been dealing this for a long time and it's your business. For us, it's not. And so it comes as a bit of a shock is too strong a word, but I think you know what I mean.
I think that's absolutely the right word. So, Michael, would you like in the motion that incorporates the 200 and 2,000, do we read these individually, or do we read these and leave out the 30,751.85 for the water main connection?
Sure. So since they're presented in on the agenda itself, you'd be able to move to approve the change orders as presented, with the exception of not approving PCO 25 in the amount of $30,751.85.
All right, let me.
So if someone wanted to move what I just said, I think that would capture what we need.
I will move to approve the community center building project change orders as presented, with the omission of the water main connection relocation per ASI 015 $30,751.85. Ask for a second.
I'll second, but I'll amend it just to save for a total cost of $202,379.79.
Did you check your math, Robin?
Yeah.
It's right on the sheet.
Right.
Guess what? I'll confirm Robin's math. So I'll second Robin's amendment, and then we can vote on the amendment and then vote on the main motion.
All in favor? Aye, John Jeffries.
I, Robin Hunter.
Aye, Dave Haviland.
And Mike is there.
So the other, and Dave, I think to your point, I think John accepted that as a friendly amendment. So
okay, that's fine.
Yeah,
as long as it's done.
And then, to Dave's point, we had included also just a general project update to specifically the board was interested in hearing about the abutters concerns in the building committee's a future change order that you'll see is a recommendation they're making. So I don't know if Al, you just want to touch on that. There was a separate packet that was sent just with all the historical data on those specific concerns.
Right, that was very helpful. So I really appreciate
it is helpful.
mean, all the material was really helpful. It was very detailed. Some of it over my head, but I appreciate that this package was put together.
It is a lot.
Dick, will you or Al summarize this, because it is a lot. There's, as I said, there's 113 pages of summary and a lot of conversation between your group, the architects, colliers, and these concerns that have been discussed over the past several months. So would somebody please just give us a summary of them and what the consensus has been?
Sure. I mean, we've we've discussed essentially the generator was brought to our attention as an abutter's concern. We've discussed moving it, which the building committee is not recommending to do due to design and logistics costs. We've also then talked about mitigation for the generator, and again trying to address the abutters' concerns. Mitigation for sound, sight, exhaust. We discussed in our building committee meeting for sound. We don't really have we can't, there are some attenuation measures which could be done. They come at a cost of 50 to 80,000 and maybe more. There's going to be design fees that are going to be involved, and consultants would be involved along with the whole design team. The building committee is not recommending at this time to do anything further for sound attenuation. We do have a jacket that is going on the generator, which is in the design documents, which is part of the scope of work for the contractor. We discussed site, and the building committee is recommending changing the chain link fence, which originally was going to be replaced. The 4-foot chain link fence would be replaced, and this is along the perimeter, the boundary of 4 Whiting Road on the lot lines, and replacing that with a 6-foot tall wood fence, which would match the wood fencing which continues on to Springdale Avenue. We have talked about working with the owner of 4 Whiting Road to strategically place trees, which the town has agreed to do, previously agreed to do, and is within the scope of work with a contractor. They can be strategically placed. And we've also discussed exhaust, which was a concern brought up. And at this point, we're not recommending any mitigation. And that hopefully summarizes where the building committee is on this. Al, I don't know if you have anything to add.
I think that pretty much covers it. And actually, I did want to clarify one thing. So this will be an approximate cost of $13,765. This was calculated based on the architect's linear footage takeoff. We still don't have a formal proposed change order from the contractor. So the cost for the new fence would be approximately $13,700, in the neighborhood of $13,700.
Did you guys look at just putting the fence around the transformer and this pad with the generator?
Yes, we did look into an acoustical fence right at the generator, in addition to, of course, the jacket, which is coming and it is owned. And that would come at a cost approximate cost of what did I say? It was
50 to 80.
50 to 80 or something. What I don't recall what that one was. 54 to 84,000.
Well, I was talking about a wooden fence. Instead of doing the whole property line, let the trees go for the neighbors and then enclose that small area with a wooden fence. So we're not looking at $13,000 worth of wooden fence.
The generator is 11 feet tall. So I'm not sure if the question is to fence off the, right at the generator, you'd be talking about 11-foot fence, which I would imagine would be a lot more expensive.
No. I didn't realize it was 11 feet, Dick. So
I know you didn't. That's why I'm bringing it up.
It's like, holy moly, 11, that's a big generator. All right.
Yeah.
I didn't catch it because I think my connection garbled, but did you give us a cost of the gas generator going from a diesel to gas?
I know we discussed it, and I don't recall how far down the road we got with that.
Is that something we could ask to look at? Again, I'm doing this under the guise of being a good neighbor, the town of Dover being a good neighbor to those abutters. And instead of continuing to waste time, money, and effort on legal, is there something that we can do to solve this? And I think you've done everything but the diesel smell. And the only way I know how to get rid of a diesel smell is to get rid of the diesel. But I'm a history major, so if there's another way to do it, great. But the idea is if we go to a propane or a gas generator, what is that incremental increase? And I don't expect an answer tonight, but if you guys could give us a good guesstimate, that we could then know what the costs of that are, that would then allow us to basically know what we're in for. But I don't know. It could be $3,000. It could be $300,000. I have no idea.
Yeah. Yes, we could look into that.
That would be great. And again, I appreciate everything that you've said. None of this is in doubt from my chair, but we're still trying to be good neighbors. And so that's what we're trying to attempt. And we appreciate very much all of your efforts on this because we all want to be good neighbors.
Yeah.
So I mean,
Completely.
the one concern I have is, have we already signed the contract with the installer of the generator? And so is that something we could get out of? And I would imagine going from diesel to gas requires different kinds of wiring, because now I don't know where the propane tanks are, but you would have to bring those over, I guess.
There's a lot involved in this. Yes, I mean there is the question of do we already own the generator? The answer might be yes.
Okay, so I think that would be an important thing to know.
Which case,
Yes.
and what's
And
the
then
value of
if we do, can we return it?
exactly?
And
Yeah.
are there fumes? My understanding, this was as clean diesel that you could get. So yeah, I'm just asking these questions because I am ignorant. All I know is when the power goes out in my neighborhood, diesel and propane generators get turned on, and they don't sound any different to me. So.
Yeah, I mean, we can go through the exercise. I know it was looked at originally. There were, the different options for the generator. This is what the design team and the committee landed on. To make a change now, I think, it's, we can maybe come up with rough order of magnitude on some of the pricing to make that change, which may include how, if the generator is already owned, how that gets dealt with, if that could be looked into.
Again, just from a good neighbor standpoint, if you guys could I love that rough order of magnitude because the exact cost is not going to be the issue here. Another thing is you talked about a vent stack, which is approximately 3,000 to 4,000. Is it possible to get a picture of one of those? I mean, what are we talking about for a vent stack? Is it going from 11 feet? And I'm sure the thing has already got a foot muffler or something similar, and then it's going to go up higher. Is a vent stack going to make any difference to the neighbors?
I talked to Jarek about the vent stack. You could do a vent stack whatever size you want. If you want to do a foot or 10 feet.
It's variable. Oh, I didn't know.
Yeah, because right now it's right now the generator is code compliant in every sense. We don't need a vent stack for any reason. But if we choose to do a vent stack, we could choose to do whatever size. Except the only thing is that it would have to be a standalone vent stack. So you would have like the wires coming on the side. And the concern there would be that from what I got talking to Generac is most people won't do it if they don't need to, because it would just be ugly to the residents.
Well,
It would be what?
It would be ugly. Like it would be not aesthetically pleasing to look at.
And so there's two things with that, and David one is visual impact, which there is there is a visual concern from the abutters. This would be a further visual impact to them, seeing a stack come way up. And the other thing is there's no if you did extend the vent stack up, how much do you extend it, and how much of a difference will that make a difference depending on atmospheric conditions?
Does it make a
Above my
difference?
pay grade.
So,
I have no idea. But
I
one of
have
the
no
things that
idea
was-
what it looks like, Dave, so.
Right, but why I asked for a picture, and I understand it's visually unappealing, but perhaps the neighbors could decide. Would they like a 5-foot vent stack and look at that? And would that make enough of a difference to get the diesel exhaust high and away? Again, I just being a good neighbor, it's like, these are the choices that we have. Which one would you like?
Yep.
And I don't have any answer to any of this, Dick. I just don't know. But well, if you could look into both of those, we would be grateful, because again, we're trying to resolve a neighbor issue. You guys are trying to build a building, and hopefully the paths will cross and we can make the neighbors, I'm going to use the word sufficiently happy, because I don't know what else to say.
Yep. Yes, we will look into that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Chris, Michael, is there any other item on this particular subject while we have the building committee, while we have Al here, while we have Katie here, while we have the opportunity to vet some of these things? Is there anything else on here that we should know, anything that could be potential delays, anything as we're going through this that would add to everything we've discussed earlier in terms of time delays, cost delays, additional costs to the town, potential delays for abutters, whatever the case may be?
No, I mean, I think, in terms of what we know, we hit all the change orders. We in the update, the intention was to cover both the delay that has been floated but rejected, as well as the abutters' concerns and what the committee has discussed and has looked to so far. So, Alan, Dick, unless there's something else you think, I think we covered everything we had intended to.
Yeah, I don't have anything else.
I'm good.
Yeah. I just want with looking at the chat and looking at the attendees and looking at the people who have been part of the packet, I just want to make sure that we're, to use Dave's words, we're covering all of the concerns of all of the stakeholders, not only Dick and Katie and Al, the abutters. We also have to think of the same things for people on the inside of the building. I know that it's not going to be a lot, but we're not only have to be concerned with the people on the outside and the abutters and the people who are going to be looking visually at it, but I want to make sure that we're mitigating sound and we're mitigating exhaust and mitigating all these things for the people on the inside. It just, Robin and I have been, Robin just went through it. I'm about to enter it. When your child has a wedding and you're spending a lot of money on a very on a really nice event, I can imagine that there are going to be people at our community center who have spent lots of money on catering and having a beautiful event, to have a generator kick on in the middle of it. I can't imagine that would be a good thing to happen. So I just want to make sure we're being mindful of the people on the outside and the people on the inside and all the people who will be using the building. Does that make sense to everyone?
It does, and I think the one thing that we can control is the timing of when the generator's tested. Again, this. If there's a major power outage, all bets are off, right? Because we have to have the generator on. But in terms of just normal day-to-day or week-to-week use, it's run once a week for about 30 minutes, and we have the ability to control that. So, we're happy to work with occupants, abutters, to try to find what's the best schedule to put that on to be least impactful.
Dick, are the noise jackets that you talked about for these units, are those consistent with what are going to be around the AC units as well?
No, well, first of all, the AC units are up on the roof and they were purposely located up on the roof and as far away from the Whiting Road as was logically possible, given that we were also saving space for future solar. And as far as they're up on the roof. They're typical rooftop units. I don't know, Katie, if you want to elaborate on that or not.
Yeah, I can add in just a bit. So the generator is part of the design of it, that it has an integral the enclosure. So the acoustical enclosure, we heard comments, at the beginning of the project about concern about a butter. So that was integral as part of what went out to bid. So that's the scope that's owned. So I think there were some conversations before about potentially additional fences or things that you would put around it. When the generator comes, as we said, the height of it is about 11 feet from the ground. Part of that is because the decision was made to have the tanks underneath it as opposed to underground. So there's always the scenario of, do you want it buried, and then you might have trouble getting it later. So that was a decision, was to have the generator over it. That's part of the reason for the height. But the generator itself has that enclosure in it. All of it is, it's not as if we're amending it or adding something to the top. That's all coming from the manufacturer of the generator. So it's not like it's not a Frankenstein of parts and pieces. As Dick said, the air conditioning units are as far away really from any of the abutters as can be reasonable, because they have to be spread out on the rooftop, but they're on the high roof. So what we're talking about is, the west side of the site, that roof where the fire pump room is and where the power comes in, that is a lower roof. So I guess the short answer is the enclosures are kind of different things. They're different kinds of sweaters or raincoats that are on top of the units, just because of different kinds of units. So with the generator really only being for emergency, it's hopefully decorative the majority of the time, because you have a generator because you don't want to have to use it, but when you do have to use it, it's available to you. Whereas the mechanical units that are on the roof, those will be used daily. Those will be in use, and like anything else, they'll be commissioned as part of the contractor's scope at the end of the project, and typically some months after that, there's a process of going back, and I'm sure Al can speak to that a bit more. There's always a lengthy process at the end of a project where the subcontractors, as part of their specifications and scope, they give trainings, and sometimes it can be as much as an entire week of going through with an operations group, and whether filming them or just walking through who's going to be doing the maintenance on the building. So that's really, I appreciate your concern about the air quality or the noise. I think there's a lot of different ways in which those concerns can be voiced and vetted to make sure that there's not going to be something that's slipping through the cracks. So our project's going to be ending or opening, in the cold weather season. So it's going to be towards the end of the year. Everything will be kicked on. Sometimes when projects open up in the summer, it's tricky because you have to kick on all the boilers and the furnaces and whatever you have. And you're in August and you're trying to turn on the heat because you want to test things. So we're going to have all that tested before the building is open before we welcome the public in. And there will be multiple rounds of that commissioning. And I would also say that, because we're getting close to the project, we're getting close to closing it in. Once the building is watertight, windows, roofs, doors, we have it in, that's when the finishes and the interior things really start to pick up. So that is also the part of the project where a lot of work happens very quickly, but you don't see it because once the walls are in, you're not really seeing as much from the outside. But that is where work can escalate very quickly, because once your building's watertight, you can finishes, walls, flooring, ceilings, that can happen really quickly. And I appreciate your question was about quality of air, but I just wanted to mention that there will be, multiple rounds of review of that, so that when mechanical kicks on, I know, one thing that's as part of occupancy. So when the contractor is done and they say, okay, we're ready to hand it over to the owner, there's a multiple checklists. Each of the consultants and engineering disciplines have lists that they review. So we do punch lists, but even more than that, there's kind of a minimum short list of what is needed in order to for them to release their affidavit as part of the designer's contract, and to say, yes, this building is occupiable. And so one of them is fresh air. So it's a really basic measurement to make sure that the mechanical subcontractor, they install the ductwork, everything is hooked up. They have another company comes in and does the balancing, to say, okay, let's make sure that the building is balanced and we have fresh air in all these spaces. Because otherwise you can have a beautiful building that's, uncomfortable. But those are, when we get way into the weeds of what happens in a project, that's kind of the stuff that happens that, does need to be checked and validated. Because if you don't have fresh air, it's not a space that you want the public to be in. Those are all the things that'll be happening towards the end.
Right. No, but I very much appreciate that, Katie. And of course, we want clean, fresh air in the building. I think the add-on is we also want clean, fresh air for the neighbors.
Mm-hmm.
And it is my understanding that there is a generator very similar to this at the Protective Services building across the street. And if that's true, maybe we could go look at that and see that one go off, which it does the same 1/2 hour every week,
Mm-hmm.
and stand next to that and see, hey, is this air that I would want to breathe and my family would want to breathe?
That's a really good question. I can't say that I know exactly what model that is, or what the manufacturer is, or the size.
Of course.
I do know that we have obviously, Carl is at our regular weekly meetings, and we have talked to him about exercising other units within town. So he probably would be a good one to be able to validate and say, yes, those are similar, or those ones are not. And I think the question before about diesel versus gas is another thing that would be relevant. I'm not sure what in town is diesel or gas, but I'm sure Carl knows.
Yes, and again, we don't expect to have all these questions answered, but certainly you see the direction we're trying to go in, and be good neighbors, and we just want to find out everything that we can do that isn't going to stop the project or cause massive costs for the town, but everything else we should look to do, and that's my opinion.
Agreed. Thank you, David. So, and Katie, thank you. That was lots of detail and lots of really good background on that, because it's just when you visually look at the drawings and you see air conditioning units up on the roof, you don't visualize them making a whole lot of noise, or a generator kicking on in the middle of a party, or in the middle of a Sunday afternoon when somebody in there is having a party in the backyard abutting it. So it makes all the difference in the world. So thank you, and we will continue this process, right? Michael Blanchard, is there anything else we need to discuss on this item, on number 5?
I believe we are all set. Thanks, John.
So Katie, Dick, Al, thank you. And Ruth, thank you for this. I just want to be, as we've all said, we want to be really mindful that we're meticulous in this part of the process.
Yep.
I echo the thanks. I really do. I appreciate your time and explaining to us lay people what the heck's going on.
Yeah. Robin, anything you'd like to add before we move on?
I'm just wondering when we can get the information about the generator.
Al, do you have any idea about how long it might take to kind of gather
I think
that?
if you give us like a week or so, I think. I mean, I'll check with FMA because we'll probably need to coordinate with them, but I think maybe like a week or so should be plenty of time.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Dick, one thing I just want to cover before we say goodbye to you is one of the things that we were taken really by surprise was the noise from the solar units on the town garage. We were never told that there would be excessive noise, and they are very, very noisy. And And that's something that Michael is looking into with Kevin. We have a lot less abutters around the town garage, but even the solar is really noisy. So I just don't know if that's something you came across, or I, wouldn't want to jump from the frying pan to the fire with regards to noise and noise mitigation. So just
Yeah.
for whatever that's worth.
Right. I mean, we do not have any solar panels in the contract. We're positioning things for future solar panels should the town decide to put solar panels on the roof. We're just thinking ahead and positioning other units. So
Great.
no solar on this building.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah.
John,
Yeah.
I'm absolutely flabbergasted to hear that the solar is making. I've got one on this roof, and it doesn't make a peep, and all the gear doesn't make a sound.
It is constant. As soon as the sun comes up to the time the sun goes down, it is constant all day long, whenever the sun's shining.
What is the noise? Is it like a hum, like a mechanical?
Yes. Mechanical. It's when the way it was described to me, and Michael probably knows better because he's dealing with it, and Kevin trying to get it resolved. But when the solar is being generated, and it goes from the roof right down the side of the building, is then transferred to the lines. It is constant. Whenever the sun is up, you will hear it constantly.
Yeah,
Mike,
and
is
I
that-
think it's further exasperated by the fact that it's a metal building. And so one of the solves that we are pushing and our consultant is pushing is some acoustical panels, or I don't know what the right word is, that would help with that, because that is not helping the situation at all.
To be continued.
Yes.
Thank you all very, very much.
Okay, thank you.
We are going to move on to item 6. And Michael, this is you.
So
Discussion.
You did that one.
I'm sorry. Oh, we did
And
it.
we
Sorry.
We did that one.
Yes,
We can go right to 7.
7. Thank you very much. The chairs of the town boards and commissions have requested the Board of Selectmen appoint or reappoint individuals to their boards and committees. We did this last week with a number of committees and the police and the fire. So just these 4 appointments, Mike?
Yes, just these 4 for now. Some more will continue to trickle in. This is getting these ready and people to respond is quite a lot of work. Thanks to Mona for handling it, but there'll be a few more that'll come in over July as well. But these are what's prepared for tonight.
Okay, so the Council on Aging reappointing Gil Tiss and Elizabeth Hagan, 3-year terms effective July 1st, 2024, June 30, 2027. Reappoint Anne Marie Thompson, 1 year effective July 1st, 2024 through June 30, 2025. The Historical Commission, reappoint Ellen Weinberg, 3-year term effective July 1st, 2024, June 30th, 2027. And staff appointments, Felix Emmel, backup building inspector, 1 year effective July 1st, 2024 through June 30, 2025. I move to appoint all the individuals to the town boards, committees, commissions, and staff members to the various positions as we just presented, and ask for a second.
Second.
All in favor, I, John Jeffries.
I, Robin Hunter.
Hi, Dave Haviland.
And thank all of the appointees very, very much for the Council on Aging and the Historical Commission, as well as our backup building inspector. Felix does a lot of work in the town of Dover. So thank you all very, very much for your involvement in the town. Mike, can we move to item 8?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
There seems to be, I don't have anything to report for open space. I don't have anything to report, obviously, for Hale or any of our other initiatives. I know that we have a summertime schedule for our, everyone, I believe, has agreed to our summertime schedule for our planning and our summertime schedule for the Board of Selectmen standing meetings. Robin, do you have anything?
So we have a housing task force meeting next week. And at that meeting, we're going to get a draft, first look at some of the bylaws that, the housing consultant has put together. We also have charged Anna Nagy on setting up a sustainability committee, and she's done a whole lot of research and found that towns have a variety of different kinds of committees. So we're going to go over all the options, and at some point when we've agreed on something, we will make a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen. So that is the one committee. I know Warren also met today. And one of the things we should begin to think about is the allocation of assignments to committees for next year. So maybe we can do that at our next meeting.
Thank you. We will. David, anything you'd like to add?
It's June 30th of the fiscal year end. Today's the 20th. So Kate and I are giving everyone an ollie income free till the second week in July, because everyone goes away in the first week of July. So there won't be anything to report until after we have our first meeting, and go from there. But Michael did provide a lot of information, so we have lots to chew on. We have to respect where we are on the calendar.
Right. And we may, if there's something comes up, we may have to have a meeting next week.
Has happened.
Yeah.
Hopefully not, Mike and Chris.
Thank you for
It
your
has
flexibility, but we hope not.
And Chris, because everybody's going away for a week, you can cut the digital newsletter number of pages.
Michael, you want to move to number 9?
Sure. So, again, we've talked about most of the stuff during the course of the meeting, but just wanted to hit a few things. One is, thanks to Chris, we're about to launch a new board and committee vacancy volunteer page. So this would be a current updated list of boards and committees that have openings, and then also the ability to submit an application right on the website, expressing your interests. You can attach a resume, and then we take it from there and get it to the appropriate board or committee chair to review. So that'll be great. We'll advertise that and hopefully encourage people to look and see if they see something that's interesting to them and to volunteer, because as you see, it's how hard this job is. It's done by so many volunteers. The building committee, I guess you get a small amount of money, but you don't really get paid, and it's a lot of work. So we really do appreciate people volunteering. We have a meeting next week to receive a presentation on the dispatch regionalization study, which has been undergoing. As you know, you approved us to participate at no cost. So we will get an update on that, perhaps some final results, and we'll share that with the board at a future meeting. I have a meeting tomorrow with Aquarian to continue to move forward on their last time they were with you, both on an interconnection with our Springdale system, as well as their efforts to provide an interconnection with Dedham Westwood and MWRA. So stay tuned for that. We'll continue to try to move that forward. I'm going to send the board a draft of the finance director, treasurer collector position statement for a review. I'd ask, and in the email, be clear if each of you could look at that, respond individually to me if you have any suggestions. But we're hoping to go live with that next week.
Excellent.
Which would be really great, because we really like to get moving on that, and working with Bernie has been very good, and I expect it will continue to be. And lastly,
he should have it filled in a few days then.
Piece of cake.
Bernie's a magician.
Asking a little bit much, Robin, but
I wasn't asking, I was stating.
She was already celebrating. So
wow.
Right.
And lastly, I just wanted to mention, both for the board's benefit, because a couple of you had reached out to me, but also for the public's benefit. You may have seen in the news recently, there were some cybersecurity incidents with some towns in the area. And I just wanted to let you know that, we have a pretty robust training program here with our employees. And we also have a really good relationship with our IT provider. We actually had a meeting last week to review all of our cybersecurity principles and policies and practices. And so we are very aware of that. We're very cautious, and we'll continue to stay at the forefront of trying to fight that. It's always a risk, no matter how good we do. Some of these recent attacks were extremely sophisticated, and they weren't the typical, you could peek and see it wasn't really from John, it was from some AOL address or something. These were not like that at all. So we have to be ever vigilant, but just wanted to reassure the board, reassure the public that we are on top of that. And that's all I have.
Thank you. It's a lot.
The one way to protect yourself is don't click on any links.
Yeah,
That's right.
don't go online. Don't ever go online. Don't listen to anything that Chris shows.
I send people emails and say, "Did you send me a link?"
Yeah.
Good way to do it. The consent agenda consists of the early voting hours for September and November election, the list of election workers, approve the acceptance and expenditure of a $5,000 gift to the Council on Aging from the Friends of the Council on Aging to be used to fund programs and services for our seniors, approve one-day liquor licenses for, Robin, ready for this? Lots of parties you didn't get invited to in July. 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th, 15th, 16th, 17th, 18th, 20th, 25th, August 1st, 8th, 15th, 22nd, 29th. There's a lot less parties in August than there is in June and July.
Because everyone's on vacation.
Everybody's away. So there's, very
Well,
few
a bunch
parties.
of them are weddings, John.
I know. Lots of weddings, Robin.
John, you got to throw in September 7th. You forgot September 7th.
September 7th. Thank you very much. I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll second that.
All in favor, I, John Jeffries.
I, Robin Hunter.
Hi, Dave Haviland.
And I'm going to give Mona a plug. We all need to go and sign these.
Yes, we all
Yeah,
need
right.
to go sign. I will be there tomorrow.
Although
I think Mona's on vacation, right?
Mona's not on this call to take the heat of sending us 200 pages of packet. So
There are a
And,
lot.
and I don't know about you, but that one PDF I couldn't download. The only way I could read it was on the web.
there was
Oh.
one that was persnickety. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Oh, sorry, Rob, go ahead.
I just don't like the web interface, but it gave me all the information.
Just so the board doesn't make an extra trip, Mona isn't in right now, so I just want to make sure I have all of the proper things that you need to sign. So what I'll do is tomorrow I'll make sure I have them, and as soon as they're all on the table, I'll email them to you, or email you to let you know. So if they're not ready till Monday, I don't want you coming in and have to come in more than once. So I'll shoot you an email when things are ready to go.
Okay, Mike, you have a lot more confidence in us than you should, because Mike has to send a bunch of reminders. So it's probably zero risk of anybody showing up tomorrow.
Fair enough.
I've got to be there for something different, so I'm not coming to sign. So
All right. I'll try to, if I can have it ready, I certainly will.
Last week there were a lot of signatures. We signed.
I was away, and I felt badly because I was away for 10 days and there were critical items that needed to be signed.
But we got it done. Thank you.
Don't
So,
worry.
and by the way, Mike, the drive is so long for all of us. I mean,
Yeah,
When
especially.
you're in Europe, it's very long.
well, I'll give you that one. I'll give you that one.
She has a tough commute.
So
Well, thank you all very much. we
I-
are going to
You
ask
want a motion to adjourn?
motion to adjourn. I will
I'll
second
second.
Robin's motion at 8:44.
45.
45. All in favor? I, John Jeffries.
I, Robin Hunter.
Hi, Dave Haviland.
Well done. Thank you all. This is a lot of ground covered, and
It's a lot about construction progress.
there's a lot of
Yeah.
moving parts. Yeah.
It is so hard to do because, I mean, well, I'll just speak for myself. And, I love to make fun of it. All right, history major. And now I've got to go figure out terracotta behind walls and what the fasteners are and what the
Yeah.
reasonable price is. So I'm like,
You didn't know what you'd become an expert in as a selectman.
There are parts of this process where whether you're building an old building on top of a new building on top of an old building, whether you're putting solar panels on a garage roof, there's things, it happens after the fact, and you say, how did we not know that? Like, how did that not come up 7 months ago or a year ago? And
That's why when you do a kitchen renovation, you ask yourself, should I have just torn down my entire house?
isn't that what you did, Robin? You started to do a kitchen, then you bought a new house?
No.
all right. Well,
Good night, everyone.
yeah, good night. Appreciate the time.
Thank
Thank
you.
you all.
Appreciate it.